Okay. Mark, great to see you. How good and how strong and how big a team are you assembling for the Ebor Festival?
Never as big as I would like. And that tends to always be the case with festivals, particularly when you ask me just a few days beforehand. We're always sort of tearing our hair out, trying to get as many in there as possible. It never looks like you've got a strong enough team to go to war with. Just hope it's all right on the night, sort of thing. So I don't feel confident at this stage that I've got a big enough team, but we'll see how it pans out.
We'll go through it in a minute. To me, the ones I've seen, it looks very strong on paper. The meeting as a whole, though, very different this year, of course. But Ebor Festival's gone past. Is this a week you have ringed in the diary from a long way out, I imagine? How much do you enjoy it?
It's a very strange thing that in many ways it's easier when you've got festival meetings when they're away from home, because if we're going to Ascot or Goodwood, we go and we camp down there and leave the team at home to run the yard, and so it makes it a lot easier for me, arguably more enjoyable, because with York, I can be in York in about an hour from home. So we tend to try and do two jobs, that we're running the yard at home and going to York. In a normal year, we would have a lot of visitors this week as well, because people come for York and want to come and see their horses. So it's probably, in a normal year, it's the busiest week of the year for us. It will be a lot quieter this year, a lot less visitors. There's some, but a lot less visitors and a lot less owners on track, of course.
And not literally camping when you go to Goodwood. I imagine you do it with a bit of style. This year, we saw Charlie and you there each day. Your wife came down as well. Is that would you have flown down each day to Goodwood? How did you do it?
Deirdre and I stayed one night, but otherwise we flew down each day, yes. So, but again, it was very different from a normal year, because we didn't have the same pressures of entertaining owners and so on. So, and in many ways it made it actually easier, because we were doing entries and declarations and things at home before leaving. One of the big disadvantages with Goodwood is there's the Wi-Fi.
And I was teasing Charlie, because I said, because your family have been so kind to us on ITV in lockdown with your wife and son singing for us. I said to Charlie, what talent have you got? Are you flying nowadays? Are you singing, or are you just training? But he's not doing badly at the latter, is he?
Yeah, no, he's not doing badly at the latter. Yes, I think most people can see his involvement now, and it appears to certainly hasn't had a negative effect on the business or the team. Appears to have had a positive effect.
Well, let's talk about the team, and we're going to go straight in with the big one on day one, Mark, the Juddmonte International, which looks red hot. And I think the last couple of years, I think it's fair to say one of the most popular horses on ITV, just because the story of Rose of Kildare is such a good one, and the owners of everything. Are you going to throw her in here?
Yes, she'll run. Yeah, actually, the intention is that she will run. As you see, she'll be back to her days of being a long shot, won't she? She's quite used to being a
she seems to thrive on it.
Runs, maybe not quite as much as this. So she's made some other enormous leaps in her career and done so successfully, and deserves the chance to do so again.
And what fun the syndicate must have with her. To me, and this is what we're all about on ITV, as you know, I love people like that having so much fun with the horse. She's got to be surely the dream syndicate horse, hasn't she?
Yes, unbelievable. She's absolutely unbelievable. I don't know if you know the whole story of her, but she wasn't actually in this partnership originally. They had 3 horses that came from the BBAG sale in Germany, and one of those was diagnosed as a wobbler in April 2019, and a neurological condition where he was never going to be able to race. And we said to the partnership, we have a filly that we bought very cheaply, or Charlie bought very cheaply in Fairy House, and she's just about ready to run, and we'll give her to the partnership as a straight swap for the wobbler. So she was not in that partnership originally, and it's been a fairy story. She cost €3,000, and she's earned many times that.
And it's got many fans. I just love that story with her now taking on Godolphin and Lord North and Qatar with Kamiko. It's just brilliant what sport is all about. So best of luck for everyone involved. We'll try and get some of the owners maybe on Zoom on Wednesday. But you've got others on the day as well. And Subjectivist ran such a good race at Goodwood in the Gordon Stakes. But was that the performance that almost summed up your week? A brilliant run, but hitting the bar.
Yeah, it was. It was a frustrating Goodwood for us. Was it 5 or 6 seconds?
I think we had 5 in the first couple of days.
Yeah, perhaps. And he summed it up a bit. At the same time, we were satisfied with that run. It was a good one for him. A steady progression as you'd expect with a horse like him. Very much like his half brother, Sir Ron Priestley, last year. That as he stepped up in trip and stepped up in class, the horses kept pulling out a little bit more. And this is all part of a route towards the St. Leger, and the Vault just seems like a logical next stage.
Excellent. And then the Acomb on day one as well. A race. I think I'm right in saying you won for the first time. Was it Bijou Dand in the 90s?
Yeah, I would guess that. I'm pretty sure that would be the first time. I'm not sure if we've won it since.
You have. Sure. I think you've won it 3 times, I think. Would Weaver have ridden for you that day?
No, Darryl Holland, I believe. Yeah, Darryl Holland, I think. You've sprung that on me a little bit, but I'm fairly sure it was Darryl Holland that won the Acomb on him. And obviously a top class horse. He was a maiden when he went to the Acomb. In fact, it wasn't a group race in those days, but obviously turned into a top class horse.
And you've got Gear Up entered this time, is that right?
Yes, Gear Up, and I hope he'll run. Yeah, don't see any reason why not. His debut at York, where he got loose before the race, and so it just shows you doesn't do them any harm. Had a little run round, was none the worse for it. And in the race, he was a bit strange in the race as well. He dropped out the back a bit and then flew at the finish. So looked like there'd be a lot of improvement to come for the horse. Big jump up to the Acomb from winning a maiden first time, but deserves his shot. And
your wretched son put him up in the tipping competition, raising money for the Injured Jockeys Fund, which I was part delighted about as a trustee, but part humiliated by because I was in the same tipping competition. And I thought at the start, you had absolutely no chance. I thought Charlie screwed this right up, and then it was an amazing performance. What else might you have on day one, Mark? Might you run the horse that ran in the Stewards Cup?
Sorry, that ran in the Miras?
In the Stewards Cup, yeah.
Possible. It's certainly possible that we may run him, yes. He was entered for Ripon on Sunday. We've decided to give that a swerve and look at York. So yes, it's possible that he'll run there. We've got Rochester House and Summer Moon in the Sky Bet handicap. They're possibles, and Mutazawed in the nursery.
So it looks like a very busy day one. It looks a bit quieter on day two.
Yeah, an awful lot quieter on day two. I think we could be struggling a bit there. The Clipper Logistics handicap, we could have Blown by Wind in there, maybe Deep Intrigue. And the nursery again, we could be represented in the nursery, or we should be represented in the nursery, I think. Maybe Vasily Kata and or Thunder of Niagara, who flopped it at Newbury, but there's been at Goodwood, but there's been no obvious reason for that or anything wrong with him. So we may give him a chance to bounce back at York.
Is this the day where you'll entertain a few more of those? I know you're not having many, but this would be the day to entertain a few owners in the morning, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be, but it seldom works like that.
Now then, day three is all about one horse for me. You can't be too sad to have heard that interview with John Gosden after the Goodwood Cup, where he said Mr. Nielsen would like to go to France to the Foy and then potentially the Arc with Stradivarius because finally the door's open.
Yeah. Let's hope the door's opened. What is it? Is it 4 or 5 times I've had horses between DXB and Neff Road?
Yeah,
4 or 5 times we've finished second to Stradivarius, and at least 3 Group 1s, 4 Group 1s. I'm sure with 2 Ascot Gold Cups, 2 Goodwood Cups. And in this race last year, DXB finished second to Stradivarius. So, really, Neff Road, he desperately deserves something like this. And, again, all part of it's hard to know where we're going with Neff Road longer term, because he kept coming up against Stradivarius in the Group 1s. The Cadran, you would think at the end of the season, would be an obvious one for him, but in his only run in France last year, it was his only disappointing run of the year. So we're a bit nervous to travel with him. He seems to run better close to home, although we may be building too much into one run. But it would be great to get a Lonsdale, and we'll be a bit relieved if we're lining up without Stradivarius.
I don't think anyone could deny that he and you, after that, would deserve it. With a horse like Stradivarius, Mark, I mean, we love him, obviously, because he's a horse that resonates beyond the sport. Do you look at it and think, oh, God, not him again? Or do you appreciate the horse's absolute brilliance?
Yeah, you appreciate the horse's absolute brilliance. It's interesting that, looking at the style of his victories and, when he's beaten us, there's been times when you thought, oh, Frankie's been a bit overconfident and, giving him a lot to do. There's been times when you start to think, well, could we have done something different with our horse? But the reality is that it doesn't really matter what we do, that, he came past us at Goodwood like we're standing still. Now he didn't win by that far, but he does look like he's got another gear up his sleeve, and just a phenomenal horse. And there's times when there's been, particularly in the staying division, it's gone through some weak patches in the past, and there's been times when a horse is dominated and you said, well, he's not beating much, but horses that Stradivarius is beating are quite phenomenal. Irish Derby winners, and Neff Road that was placed in the St Leger DXB last year, was second in the Derby. So you can't say he's taking on weak fields, but he's just supreme. Yeah,
well said. And before I ask you about other runners on the day, how do you see the big sprint, the Nunthorpe, which is probably the highlight? The Juddmont's good, but for us on ITV, the Nunthorpe's probably the big one, because Batash against the clock, as well as the weather's kind, is a big thing for us. But also, we're going to explain the weight he's got to give to these 2-year-olds. Which camp do you think would come out on top, Batash, or do you think the younger division might have him getting all that weight?
Yeah, I don't study it enough. When I don't have a horse in that division running, I'm not really looking at them all. Batash, obviously, can't knock it, and I would say that the younger division will have a lot to do. That said, in the past, I've always really thought that 2-year-olds and even 3-year-olds, really struggle in sprints against older horses, and that it's my theory is that it's got nothing to do with weight. It seems to be more that they're intimidated by the older horses. But then you look back in this Lyric Fantasy. I don't know. There's been other 2-year-olds have won the Nunthorpe before. So we know it can be done, but I would never be siding with the youngsters against the older horses.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Very interesting indeed. And another good thing about this, well, I suppose these terrible times, but we get to show 5 races a day, Mark. So for the first time, we're going to show races like the Galtres, and we're going to also show the Convivial Maiden. Have you got one to go in that?
Unfortunately, I don't think I have. Which is a huge disappointment to me because
Yeah.
it's it's such a good race, such a good prize. It's less than half normal, but it's still a very, very valuable maiden. We could run Fragrant Storm, but we're a bit thin on the ground at the moment. Maybe we won so many maidens with the 2-year-olds early on, but
nice problem to have.
It's a frustration to me not to have a horse for that race, because since it came on the scene as the most valuable maiden in the country, we've gone out of our way to target it most years.
And what about the handicaps that day? Have you got anything?
It's going to be another quiet day for us. The Sky Bet handicap, the 1.5 mile, Zabeel Champion could go there. And then in the 7 furlong, it's a mile handicap, the nationwide handicap, just short of a mile, with overright as a possible. And a vague possibility, we're looking to bring Visionary back, who's been off the track for quite some time. He's galloped this morning, gone very nicely. So we're itching to find somewhere to bring him out and try him again. Horse that had won his maiden or novice race at Newmarket beginning of last year, and was very much hyped as having done an exceptional time in the race. And the wheels came off a bit since. So we're itching just get him out, and it could be at York.
Well, what a fascinating runner he would be. On to the final day then, Mark, and the Sky Bet Ebor, which I would be amazed if you're not firing at least a couple at this.
Well, we've had the big debate about Communique, who ran disappointingly at Goodwood. Everything seemed to be right for him at Goodwood, and he was looking at $1 million, and he ran disappointingly. Now, we have declared him to run tomorrow at Newbury. And there's been a bit of a family debate about whether you can ask a horse to run twice at that level in a week. We do it plenty of times. Deirdre said he ran badly at Goodwood, and we shouldn't be thinking he'll run 2 Saturdays running at the highest level or close to the highest level. I said, well, if he's capable of winning the Ebor or running well in the Ebor, then he's capable of running well in the Geoffrey Freer or vice versa. And if he's well, he can do both. So it's possible that Communique would go in there as I think there's been a bit of a debate in the Racing Post about
who's won it. Tell me who was in this debate. Was Charlie involved as well, and who's won?
Just Charlie and Deirdre and I. Just a family debate. And so he is declared to run at Newbury tomorrow. I'm not sure what the weather here in Midland is. Very murky and miserable, but no actual rain. I know they had a lot of storms down south a couple of days ago, and Newbury's, I think, officially good to soft at the moment. We'll be watching that closely, because in recent years Communique has not run well in soft ground. So if the ground was to get any softer at Newbury, he might have to give that a miss and head for the Ebor, and he'd be a very interesting Ebor runner. Group 1 placed horse, Group 2 winner, and that's the sort of horse we see in the Ebor nowadays, and it's a fascinating race.
And listen, I could, for the first time ever, I might be of use to you here, because I live half an hour from the track at Newbury. And it was torrential yesterday, honestly. Came down in absolute rods. And today is pretty dank. It's sort of drizzle rather than a storm, but they might get a bit later. So it could easily be soft ground tomorrow, Mark. And you've got potential others. Good old King's Advice, who everyone got to know last year.
Yeah, King's Advice. Now, he's also been, he's had a disappointing year this year in comparison to last year. But, a horse that climbed up through the handicap, from 77, rose about 40 pounds. So it wasn't surprising he was going to hit a bit of a brick wall eventually. But he hasn't just been quite sparkling as he was last year. But at the same time, it's a huge prize, and he's clearly a suitable Ebor horse. So he could well line up. And Cape Coast, who's in good form, he would be another.
Excellent. So it sounds like a real potential strong team for the Ebor. I think the most impressive winner at Goodwood, and I hope we're going to see him next week. And it looked at that point, we were all saying Johnston team are going to absolutely take Goodwood apart again, was May Danning. Are we going to see him next week at York?
Yeah, could well do in the Sky Bet handicap. He's at that point now where he's going to make the transition very soon to pattern races from handicaps. He just squeaks into this one still. So he'll certainly be entered in it, and we'll look at it. And as you say, he's a very exciting horse. Disappointed the time before last at Newmarket. It was a bit of a strange run, whereas both at Goodwood and previously at Yarmouth, he looked like he was way ahead of the handicapper, and looked like a group horse running in handicaps, and that's what we think he is, really.
And just finally, as far as the horses are concerned, Eye of Heaven, you talked about Visionari, how everyone got excited about that horse. Everyone was so excited about Eye of Heaven. What has happened since Ascot, and are we going to see him?
Yeah, you could well see him in the Roses Stakes. He's another. It's strange that he has there's no secret about it. He's got a strange condition that he has a blood vessel in his nose that bleeds. Now, people hear about horses bleeding from the nose, the condition that the Americans use Lasix for, and so on. And those horses are actually bleeding from the lungs when they have a nosebleed. Eye of Heaven bleeds from his nostril, from a vessel in his nostril that we've been unable to cauterize, or we've been unable to find it, actually, to find the actual. And this is a thing that Newmarket Equine Hospital, they say they see one or two a year. And interestingly, we've had one in each of the last 2 years, and Visionari was the other horse that did this. They do not believe it affects their running at all. Now, with Eye of Heaven, he was actually bleeding from his nose when I saddled him at Newmarket when he did that spectacular run first time out. And so there was blood trickling from his nostril. He has a veterinary certificate so that to say exactly what's happening, so that the starter doesn't get shock and pull him out at the start or whatever. So there was blood at his nose that day in the saddling boxes and in the winner's enclosure. He's had a spin this morning, no blood, and nothing. In every other way seems very well. He's run. We don't think that it was any factor in the disappointing runs with him, and we're not really sure what went wrong. So he's a horse we're looking at. We've looked at since his last run and seen nothing untoward with him. He's galloped this morning with another decent 2-year-old, and again he just got such a high cruising speed that the other horse can't lay up with him. So yeah, we've been saying we would find a little race, a little confidence booster for him, but I know when it comes round to declaration time, we'll be very tempted to bring him to York.
It'll be fascinating to see him on Saturday before the race as well. Really interesting, that, Mark. So just to finish with a horrible question for you, which I know you're going to hate, but I have to ask it. Which horse of yours are you most excited about running at York next week?
Well, yeah, I think you've missed it altogether.
Go on
then. Because you haven't mentioned the Strensel Stakes on the last day, and
okay.
And Dark Vision will be probably stepping back into group company there. He's been in great form.
I'm going to write this down.
And he's another one, a horse that was a spectacular 2-year-old, lost his way a bit. Has come back this year in handicaps, including a Royal Ascot handicap, and shown his class again. Won at Pontefract last time out in a listed race, and will step back up into group company here in the Strensel Stakes. And we just think he's in tremendous form, and he's a frustrating horse on the course because he starts slowly in his races, and last time gave James Doyle some terrible traffic problems, which ended with him in the steward's room. But he's a spectacular horse to watch and a very exciting horse to be involved with. So, he's probably, him and Neef Road are the horses I'm looking forward to most.
Yeah, Neef Road would be the best story for sure. So say no more. Dark Vision in the strength. So we'll get Charlie's fancies, I think, next week, because he's such a good judge as well. But listen, all of you, the very best of luck next week, Mark, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.